Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and it is Marshall Monday. I remembered this time.
You did it. You remembered. I'm proud of you. You're not getting that old.
No. Today we are going to cover the fighter subclass Rune Knight.
This is, I think, a contender for the coolest fighter subclass. I'm a big fan of it. I think Echo Knight is pretty spicy, but Rune Knight is like just what the Doctor ordered as far as a fighter that gets a little bit of magic in some pretty cool different ways. It's like based off of runic giant magic, kind of. I messed around with a lot of homebrew for runic giant magic stuff. I made a barbarian subclass that was pretty similar to this before its launch, and I was like, hey, great minds, right? Think alike. But this basically gives magic to fighters in a fairly unique way by giving them a bunch of different runes they can use, as well as like getting other things that giants tend to get, like, you know, you get to become big if you want to and smack things around and do a little bit of extra damage with your bigger weapons. It's pretty spicy. I'm a big fan.
Like you're talking about Echo Knights, that's a cool thing they can do, but it's one thing. Rune Knights get a little more variety.
They get a lot more variety.
Yeah.
I think their limitations are a little bit harsher. Echo Knights have the joy of just doing things willy-nilly. You just like keep making infinite echoes. You have a little bit more constraints with Rune Knight. So you start with bonus proficiencies, which is bonus proficiency in Smith tools, and you can read it, speak, and write giant. Cool. Great. There's some interesting stuff in Xanathar or Touch Code and everything for tools. Yeah, like it. Sure, you can repair up your armor, do some neat stuff with that. Yeah, whatever you want to do. It's fine. It's dandy. If you like the tool stuff, there's plenty of great ways to expand out tools. I'd highly recommend finding third-party sources on them. You can get a lot of cool juice for just using tool proficiencies in some interesting, fun ways. But you definitely don't need all of them. It's not the bulk of the text. The bulk of the text here is Rune Carver. So starting at 3rd level, you can use magic runes to enhance your gear. You learn 2 runes of your choice from among the runes described below. And each time you gain a level in this class, you can replace 1 rune for a different one. When you reach certain levels, you learn an additional rune. So every subclass level. So 3rd, 7th, 10th, 15th, you learn a new rune. Now, you've learned these runes, what do you do with them? Whenever you finish a long rest, you can touch a number of objects equal to the number of runes you know and inscribe a different rune onto each of the objects. To be eligible, an object must be a weapon, a suit of armor, a shield, a piece of jewelry, or something else you can wear or hold in a hand. Your rune remains on an object until you finish a long rest, and an object can bear only 1 rune at a time. The following runes are available to you when you learn a rune. This is the rune list. If it has a level requirement, you must be at least that level in this class to learn the rune. If a rune requires a saving throw, your runic magic save DC is 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your constitution modifier. So that pushes this towards being a tankier fighter. You want to have a robust con so your runes are a little bit more resilient. Before we dive into what the runes do we gotta get an idea of how they work, what you do to activate them, if you will.
I mean, what do? You say, I imbue this sword with this rune.
Yes, once per rune you know.
Right.
So you know 5 runes, you pick 5 objects, each object gets a different rune on.
Now, by the time you get that many runes, can you use all these at the same time? You got your sword, your
3
armor.
rings, a sword, and some armor. Easy peasy.
Okay, yeah, okay, good.
So the runes available there are a lot of them. There are only 6 of them. So we can go through them briskly. The first one is Cloud Rune. The rune emulates the deceptive magic used by some cloud giants. While wearing or carrying an object inscribed with a rune, you have an advantage on dexterity, sleight of hand checks, and on charisma deception checks. You're going to see a pattern with these that I really like. The runes give a passive effect, which in this case is the advantage on dexterity, sleight of hand, and just charisma deception checks, and then in addition have an activation effect. So this one, and it says, in addition, when you or a creature you can see within 30 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to invoke the rune and choose a different creature within 30 feet of you other than the attacker. The chosen creature becomes the target of the attack using the same roll. This magic can transfer the attack's effects regardless of the attack's range. Once you do so, you can't invoke it again for a short or long rest. Basically, this gives you a short rest, redirect attack, that comes with advantage on dexterity, sleight of hand, and charisma deception checks, which is pretty cool. The Fire Rune is the next rune. This rune's magic channels the masterful craftsmanship of great smiths. While wearing or carrying an object inscribed with it, your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses a proficiency with a tool, like your smith's tools. In addition, when you hit a creature with an attack using a weapon, you can invoke the rune to summon fiery shackles. The target takes an extra 2d6 fire damage and must succeed on a strength saving throw or be restrained for a minute. While restrained, it takes 2d6 fire damage at the start of each of its turns. The target can repeat the save at the end of each of its turns, banishing the shackles on a success. Once you invoke it, you can't do so until you finish a short or long rest. So basically, double your proficiency with tools you're proficient with. You get a 2d6 smite that happens on hit that restrains things, which is pretty decent. There's the Frost Rune, so the rune's magic evokes the might of those who survive in the wintry wilderness, such as frost giants. While wearing or carrying an object with the inscribed with the rune, you have advantage on animal handling and charisma intimidation checks. Cool. In addition, you can evoke the rune as a bonus action to increase your sturdiness. For 10 minutes, you get a +2 to all ability checks and saving throws that use strength or con. Once you invoke the rune, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. I think this is one of the worst ones, that you invoke it for 10 minutes of +2 to basically athletics checks. Sometimes constitution saving throws. Sure, whatever. Stone is the last of the 4 you can pick from for your first 2 runes. The other 2 are going to come at higher levels, so we'll cover them when we get there. The Stone Rune says, this rune's magic channels the judiciousness associated with stone giants. While wearing or carrying an object inscribed with the rune, you have advantage on insight checks and have a dark vision out to 120 feet. This is the first, new ability that comes with them, which is pretty neat. You get an actual enhancement to your character beyond ability checks. Additionally, it says, in addition, when a creature you can see ends its turn within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to invoke the rune and force it to make a wisdom saving throw. Unless the save succeeds, it's charmed by you for a minute. While charmed in this way, the creature has a speed of 0 and is incapacitated, descending into a dreamy stupor. The creature repeats the save at the end of each of its turns, ending in on a success. Once you invoke the rune, you can't do so until you finish a short or a long rest. So
it doesn't even limit it. Like if it takes damage, it's just charmed and in a stupor for a full minute. Huh? Wow, that's cool.
It gets to repeat the save at the end of its turns, but yeah. So we just blitzed through 4 of them. I think this immediately is an apt comparison to make is to Arcane Archer. Arcane Archer gets 2 shots per short rest. This you kind of get 2 rune activations per short rest. I think the biggest difference so far is that they all also give you passive bonuses. They all also empower all your skill checks. Of the 4, what speaks to you? What do you like the most?
Well, first I was going to say, you're right. So why do I like this better than Arcane Archer? But that was it. Yeah, that's got the passive stuff. Let me see. I think I don't like the Cloud Rune, but just my mind just goes to Rogue, though. I know this is a fighter subclass, but let me ask you a question about the runes.
Okay.
All right. So I've got Cloud Rune on a ring.
Yep.
Can I give that to the Rogue?
Sure can.
And passive benefits?
I believe so.
Yeah, I was looking through there. I don't see anything that says you can't do that.
Falling runes are available to you when you learn a rune. The rune emulates while wearing or carrying an object inscribed with a rune, you have advantage on it. In addition, whenever you or creature you can see is about attack roll, you can use your reaction to evoke the rune. I think that's incorrect. I don't think other people can use the runes. I think only you can use the runes because it specifies you.
Yes.
If it would say the wearer, I would think, if it would allow people wearing it to use it. So I think these are exclusive to you. You just have to find different equipment to inscribe the stuff on.
And that's fair.
Could be wrong though. Check with the internet.
No, I think you're probably right. But yeah, I can accept that. Still, I think I like Cloud Rune.
I like Cloud Rune a lot. I like Cloud Rune and Fire Rune are probably my 2 favorites. I think Stone is another contender. I probably put it around where Cloud Rune is as far as a useful tool. I like Fire, even though it's outside of combat usage, is pretty minimal. It's a really powerful, second level-ish spell kind of effect where you smite for 2d6 bonus damage and restrain something, which is pretty solid. Because it's strength save or takes 2d6 and is restrained, and then takes bonus to burning damage to start each of its turns. Getting that on short rest is kind of like a pack magic slot-ish. I think it's pretty decent, and if you can do some cool things with tools, it's pretty fun. I think Frost is pretty by and far the worst, unless you are committed to doing animal handling stuff. Intimidation is also kind of useful, but the bonus for 10 minutes to ability checks and saving throws on strength or con is just not that exciting to me. So I'm not entirely all for it.
No, not really. One other thing I wanted to say about the Cloud is the reaction where you get to force an attack onto a different creature. I'm always a sucker for that kind of thing.
Yeah, me too. I love that, like, it doesn't specify if it's friendly or enemy. So you can just be like, oh, you wanted to hit me? Go hit that jackass instead. And it flips over on its buddy and smacks him in the face instead, which is pretty sweet.
I mean, that's how I assume it was meant to be used. I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise, I mean, if you're down to your last 5 hit points, yeah, maybe you shift it over to your barbarian friend who hasn't been hit yet. Otherwise, yeah, you're definitely going to want to,
Yeah.
shift it to a different enemy.
Oh, absolutely. Another important note about that is it scales with the game. So as attacks get bigger, this gets better. As you're facing down single 60-10 weapon attacks, being able to say, actually, you crush your Kobold Lackey instead is very meaningful because you're redirecting a lot more damage the higher tier this goes, which means this like kind of passively scales with the game, which is pretty nice.
Cool.
We can move on to the other third level feature. If that was all you got at third level, I'd be like, we're in Arcane Archer territory. The passives are neat, but it's still not a lot to do. This also
Yeah,
gives
but
you
I mean,
giant might.
the passives are bigger than you're giving them credit for. I mean, that for me, that puts it miles above Arcane Archer. If you have a build and a strategy where you want to be, maybe you're multi-class with Rogue, you want to be doing some pickpocketing or something, or whatever. There's a whole lot you can do with these passive abilities. That's you get to use your invoke your rune once, but the passive stuff, depending on what you intend to do with this character, I think could be a big deal.
I think the charisma ones I think are worse than they look, and I think they're worse than they look because the help action is really often commonly used in social environments, right? It's a way to get everyone participating in a conversation is someone helps you while you're making an intimidation check, someone helps you while you're making a deception check. So that advantage I find to be a little bit less valuable. I think on like animal handling, I think on insight, even insight has kind of a similar problem, but it lets spontaneous insight be made with advantage, which is decent, and that happens a fairly decent amount of the time. So I think they're fine. I don't think they're a huge amount of weight as far as power goes. They definitely make you feel better about playing the class because you're like, oh, I still have stuff. I'm not out of features. And that's a really big difference between this and Arcane Archer. You're absolutely right. You're not, oh, I've run out of shots. I guess I'm just a regular fighter now. You're still a fighter that's better at intimidation. You're still a fighter that's better at animal handling. And it's also because it's happening at third level sort of skews you into the I am the animal handler of the group if you want it to be. I am the one that does the intimidation checks, and you take charisma as your secondary for that, right? Like you can take these as ways to be the face of the party because it happens early enough. So I'm pretty here for that. I think that's a reasonable tool to get. I'm still really happy that we get Giant's Might as well. So this is the other third level feature. At third level, you've learned to imbue yourself with the Might of Giants. As a bonus action, you magically gain the following benefits that last a minute. If you are smaller than large, you become large along with anything you're wearing. If you lack room to be large, your size doesn't change. But that just still means you get the rest of these effects. You have advantage on strength saves and strength checks and saving throws. And additionally, once on each of your turns, one of your attacks with a weapon or unarmed strike can deal an extra d6 damage to a target you hit. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and get all back when you finish a long rest. So this also gives you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 uses of being big, getting like a rage-like advantage on the ability checks and saving throws, and hitting a little bit harder, which, because it's only a bonus action usage too, definitely pushes you to more feel like a giant. This alongside your runes, you can balance them out between encounters, you can Nova them all at once if you want, or you can just be like, I'm a Giant's Might in this encounter, we'll rune in that encounter, we'll rune in that encounter, and I've still got a few little things here and there that make me feel like I've got a large resource pool. I'm a big fan. It isn't a lot, but an extra d6 damage and being bigger definitely will satisfy the giant fantasy in us all.
Yeah, if you are, I mean, it says if you're smaller than large, you turn large. What if you're already large?
You're still large.
Stay large. Well, you
Yeah.
still get the other effects. What are there playable races that are like smaller than small, like tiny?
I don't know if I think there's a canonical pixie race, and I do not remember if it is tiny or not. I don't think so. Nor they try and steer clear of doing large and tiny races, and they do so by giving things like the like super build stuff where you have like advantage on athletic checks and stuff because you're really large or whatever. I don't think so, but it'd be cute to see a little pixie just be like, "You're."
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like a pixie suddenly 8 feet tall. That would be ridiculous.
Oh yeah, that'd be very funny. Another, you think this will work with? Large reduce doesn't change a size to large. It just grows it. So enlarge doubles your size. So you'll go from large to huge, which is cute. So if you wanted to be huge, that's a really easy way to get that to happen.
Cool.
It's not that good still, but it's cute. I like it. Normally being large is a downside, not an upside. So,
Bigger target.
yeah. So we're moving on next to the 7th level, and 7th level gives us 2 new things. So it gives us a new rune as well as access to the 2 remaining runes. So you now have 3 runes per short rest as far as like the expendable uses go.
Right.
And you also get Runic Shield. So at 7th level, you learn to invoke Rune Magic to protect your allies. When another creature you can see within 60 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to force it to reroll it and use the new roll. You can use this feature to times equal to your proficiency bonus and get them back on long rest. So you get like a little pool of rerolls that you just throw out to people and defend them. It's a pretty boring passive defensive feature, but it's a powerful one. When I say it's boring, I think it doesn't have a lot of flavor in this class. That doesn't do a lot of mixing or meddling with the runes that much. It's kind of like, hey, you got hit. Maybe you didn't. And I don't really get how that overlaps with the giant stuff happening here, but sure. It's good, it's useful.
This subclass has a lot of reaction options, I find.
Yeah, but they aren't like constant reactions though. They're like a 1-use, 2-use kind of reactions that you have to put in good places, which I think is great. I love that decision. It really makes you weigh like, when do I want to use these reactions? The other 2 things you get, and by other 2 things, I mean you get one of these 2 things. You can either get the Hill Rune or the Storm Rune. These are the new runes that are up for 7th level or higher Rune Knights. So Hill Rune is, the rune's magic bestows a resilience reminiscent of a hill giant. While you are wearing or carrying an object that bears the rune, you have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned and resistance to poison damage, which is, meh, sure, it's fine. It's a common enough damage type, but like it isn't so ubiquitous that I'm super happy with it. That being said, it's probably about as good as the advantage on charisma checks and stuff, so, you know, that's fine. In addition, you can invoke the rune as a bonus action to gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage for a minute. Once you invoke it, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. So it's a tank rune. It, like, you double it up with your getting large, and you get resistance to a bunch of damage types, and it's fine. I think this one's pretty mediocre. It's like a stone skin that doesn't have concentration, which is,
Yeah,
sure.
That's neat, but I don't understand why that needs to be gated at 7th level. That
Yeah, I
doesn't
agree.
seem as cool as the other ones.
I entirely agree. This feels like it should be one of the basic ones, but you know, here we are. The other one you get is Storm Rune. So using this rune, you can glimpse the future like a storm seer while wearing or carrying an object inscribed with the rune. You have advantage on intelligence arcana checks, and you cannot be surprised as long as you aren't incapacitated. That's pretty interesting. Is it good? It's interesting. In addition, you can invoke the rune as a bonus action to enter a prophetic state for a minute or until you're incapacitated. Until the state ends, when you or another creature you can see within 60 feet of you makes an attack roll, a saving throw, ability check, use reaction to you can reaction to cause the roll to have an advantage or disadvantage. Once you invoke it, you can't do so again between a short or long rest. And this is a very close approximation to Silvery Barbs. For a minute. As a reaction every turn. It's real good. This is like a selective, okay, you're going to make an attack roll, a saving throw ability check. You can have advantage now. You can have advantage now. You can have advantage now. That thing has disadvantage now. That thing has disadvantage now. For a full minute. It's real good. It's Silver Barbs is still better. It does 2 things. It imposes a disadvantage and gives an advantage. So, like, you know, that costs you a resource, though. This costs you a short rest rechargeable in less than a minute. So you get a ton of uses of this. You pick this up for a long fight. You slam it down. I'm really happy with that. The passive is fine. It's a bummer that this kind of overlaps with Runic Shield, so you'll have a little bit of decisions to make as to like when you want to give out advantage versus when you want to sort of mitigate some damage. You're probably going to try and do as much advantage in one fight and as much Runic Shield on a different one. You got a lot of resources to sort of play around and weigh here at this level, which I'm a big fan of. I'm probably picking up Storm Rune here over Hill Rune, but you know, you could also take one of the other first ones and not be that upset with it. They're all honestly kind of close in power level, minus I think Storm Rune's like effect is definitely the strongest of the lot in combat, but
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, the invoking effect, certainly. Not necessarily the passive effect.
yeah, and advantage on arcana checks is interesting, but like I don't see how that's particularly useful. I think not being surprised, we're reaching that tier where we're starting to wane out of ambush encounters. You're gonna still stumble into some in dungeons and stuff where you won't be surprised. That's kind of something. Always getting to make sure you're acting the first round of combat is nice to have. It being on top of a really powerful active ability, I think, is what makes it at its best, right? Like not being able to be surprised attached to powerful features is where you want it, and this is what exactly is happening here. So
Yeah, this one definitely justifies being gated, I think.
yeah, agreed. Next up, we've got Great Stature. So at 10th level, the magic of your runes permanently alters you. When you gain this feature, roll 3d4. You grow a number of inches equal to the roll. Moreover, the extra damage you deal with your giant's might increases to a d8. This is almost a non-feature. This gives you, so the real thing that happens here is you learn a new rune, so you get another short rest resource. It's one of the 6. Sure. Master of Runes is a 15th level. Whenever you invoke each rune from your rune, you can invoke each rune you know from the rune carver feature twice rather than once, and regain them all whenever you finish a short or long rest, which is really good. It doubles your rune usage as you learn a new rune, so you go from having 5 to 10 rune uses. Now you're just throwing runes out like crazy. So with Arcane Archer, we're like, wow, you only have 2 shots with the whole game. This sucks. This one goes, you have 2 runes, that's not great. You have 3 runes, okay, it's still not great. 4 runes is a better amount. 5 runes is pretty solid. 10 runes? Okay, now we're speaking my language. Now we're throwing these out every which way as often as we possibly can. And you close things out with Runic Judgment, which is 18th level. You learn how to amplify your rune power transformation. As a result, the extra damage you deal with Giant's Might feature is now a d10. Yep. Moreover, when you use this feature, your size can increase to huge. And your reach increases by 5 feet.
Just small correction, that's Runic Juggernaut.
Oh, sorry, I said Judgment. You're right. Juggernaut is the word there. Yeah, sure, that's whatever. The passive scaling increasing on your Giant Might could have been baked into the 8th level feature, or the 3rd level feature. What I will say, though, is like it doesn't really matter because the bulk of the power you're getting is from these extra runes that you're adding onto your character sheet. So
yeah, that's a big one. Go back to Great Stature. That's
sure.
What is that? You roll 3d4. All right, you grow a little taller. Neat. Nothing practical there. But the extra damage you deal with Giant's Might increases to d8 from d6.
Yep.
That's not a feature.
Correct. The real feature is you get your 4th rune. That's like actually the feature you get here is the 4th rune.
It's insulting.
Yeah, it's again, it's allowed to not be that great because you're getting a lot of you're getting a much better.
Just don't lie to me. Don't give me anything.
Sure.
Oh, our master.
I like how you were literally like, I would rather be given nothing than this. I still would rather have this than nothing. And again, you're not getting nothing. You're getting something here. It's just not necessarily explicitly stated. I think Rune Knight is a really
getting like a hot dog for Christmas as your from Santa. Like, oh man, my parents just went out of their way to tell me they don't love me.
I mean, when you put it like that, it's a little depressing, huh?
Master of Runes, very nice. Runic Juggernaut. I was distracted by you calling it Runic Judgment. I didn't pay attention.
You can now be huge, and your reach increases by 5 feet.
And your Giant's Might increases to d10.
Yeah. This is actually kind of a non-feature. Basically, is you get the 5 foot extra reach, and the reason it's kind of a non-feature is because you don't also get a rune at this tier. Notably, it does for some reason they didn't let you get all 6. I don't know why, but they said like no, you can only have 5 of these. Sure, let's call it for the sake of customization. Yeah, choices to make whenever you get 5 of the 6 of them.
I think an extra 5 foot reach is a pretty big deal. I don't know about 18th level, big deal, but yeah, not much.
I think Master of Runes is basically the capstone, and that's good enough. Yeah. Doubling your rune usage is enormous. It lets you just throw out double the fiery blasts, double the storm giant like reaction advantage imposing stuff. It lets you have tons of encounters where you're using all these things. Cloud Rooting twice is so good. I'm a big fan. This is gonna still be a fighter subclass in the upper tiers ultimately at the end of the day, but like I like this foundation a lot. My ideal version of this you would get upper tier giant-esque abilities too, so you would be able to get expanding magic that scales with the game. You would get like call me crazy, but like relatively comparable 5th and 6th level features to 3rd level spells. Like that, if you're getting if pastors are getting 4th and 5th and 6th level spell slots, fighters could be getting runes that do things like that are on that, playing field-ish as far as utility goes. And this option certainly doesn't do that. This option gives you a bunch of features that are, most of which are definitely 3rd level features, and the last one is, yeah, okay, that's probably a 7th level feature. And the rest of it's just like, you can use them a little bit more? Sure. So yeah, you still have all the problems Fighter does. That being said, as far as rolling with the things the Fighter does, you get a lot of more out-of-combat utility stuff. You get a lot of great in-combat utility stuff. Like, this option is loaded with things to do in combat. I think it's a pretty stellar, a pretty good designed option as far as, well-designed option as far as, like, giving fighters a subclass that lets you do a little bit of magic in a unique way that's going to be framed in a way that you're happy with.
I also think I like that it's so front-loaded. You get a bunch of stuff at 3rd level that with a lot of different options to where you could yeah, I think this would be a good multi-class subclass. Yeah, depending on what you want to do.
Yeah, I like, if you can get 15 levels in this, I think 5 levels and other things is going to be very fun as far as like bringing a 20th level character to fruition. I also think you could just play, like you suggested, 3 levels, and Rune Knight gives you 2 usable runes. Maybe you really want Cloud and Frost. Maybe you want those kind of extra elements on your character sheet for just passive improvements with a short rest reusable, decent damage redirection that scales with the game without you having to do anything with it, and +2 bonus to checks, I guess. Sure. Like, you could definitely dip into this. And because Giants Might skills a proficiency bonus, you probably want to dip into it from, like, Barbarian or dip into it from Paladin. You can then use this little extra feature and get a little bit extra juice for 3 levels in Fighter. That's pretty solid. Comes with Action Surge, comes with Second Wind, comes with the laundry list of proficiencies. I think it's pretty reasonable.
I was thinking Rogue. Using
Sure.
Cloud Rune, you get your advantage and all the little things you want to do there, roguey things. But then also, I'm picturing a sneak attack where you're lurking in the shadows, and all of a sudden, like,
Giant
they see
Rogue.
you, it's in your massive.
Yep. And notably,
That's
it
fun.
doesn't specify the weapon has to be using strength, so you can use finesse weapons and be big and get your bonus damage. Why not?
Yeah.
What's nice is, like, if you do the Rogue multi-class, Giant Might kind of, like, compensates for the D6 sneak attack damage you're losing out on, which is cute.
Yeah, that was Rune Knight. What do you think? We're grading these.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a solid B. I think you still kind of stumbles a little bit at Runic Judgment and Greater Stature. I don't love that none of the runes do what I would want 5th through 9th level runes to do, or even like 11th plus level runes to do. They're not giving you the magic I would actively want outside of combat in the upper tiers. As far as like a fighter option that gives you things to do as a fighter in combat, this is loaded, and that's why I think a B is a perfectly reasonable spot to be.
All right, let me ask you this. Now, clear your mind and try to be objective. If Runic Juggernaut and Master of Runes were switched, how would you think about it?
Exactly the same, because
Really?
that Rune Juggernaut is still a non-feature, right?
No, because I'm thinking that additional reach is going to come more into play when you've got 5 more levels to play in it, and it's still not as powerful as like the capstone being this explosive. Oh, suddenly now my rune use is all doubled. That feels more like something that would happen at 18th level.
So we say it's impressive that your rune usage is all doubled, right? What if you considered it, you go from having 5 second level spell slots to 10 second level spell slots?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's kind of what we're comparing here, right? Is we're taking features that are innately still not that powerful and doubling their usages. And it's going to feel decent, especially on short rest, especially because you've got Giant's Might to use, especially because you've got Runic Shield to use, you've got other tools in your toolbox to play defensively and do the fighter thing. But we're not getting, like, we're not anywhere near spells like Reverse Gravity. We're not anywhere near the scope of play of, like, big, splashy, explosive effects. We're not, like, even the teleportation that Echo Knight brings to the table, I think, is probably more valuable than almost all of the utility of these come to offer. I would much rather be able to teleport. An advantage on sleight of hand checks? Are you kidding me? Get out of here. I'll take a teleport every day of the week out of combat.
Advantage on sleight of hand. There are a lot of things here.
Yeah, and most of it's like your carrying capacity is you have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, or you have advantage on wisdom animal handling checks. It's like, yeah, that's something, but it's not a new way to interface with the game. It's just you're slightly better interfacing and skills.
The Storm Rune thing. That's pretty big.
Dark Vision, 120-foot Dark Vision? If you don't have it?
I'm talking about the making people re-roll their saving throws and stuff.
Yeah, that's good in combat. I want out of combat things to do.
All right, well, I'm talking about just general things to do.
Sure. This has plenty of
Oh.
general things to do in fights. You will not be short on reactions. You will not be short on options if you play a Rune Knight. Especially past third level. Like third level getting only 2. Plus, I guess you kind of get like 4 little, like you get 2 Giant's Might and 2 of the runes. And then as you scale up, you get more and more and more. It feels pretty good. I like this a lot around like 5th, 7th levels when I think it starts to feel particularly good. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this an A for fighter. I don't know, but
You would be right.
I shouldn't be weighting these. Fighter is just going to be weaker in general than other classes. But anyway, if I'm going to play a fighter, I think this is a solid A.
I would definitely recommend this to most people as far as a perfectly reasonable fighter option to play that will make you feel like you got stuff to do.
All right. That was Rune Knight. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Let us know what you think of the Rune Knight. Yeah, tell us what kind of creative things you do with all these options. There's so much going on. All right. Leave us some comments and like and subscribe and all that, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it, a gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.